Hey everyone, welcome back to the Playbook. Today I'm joined by Avi Brown. Avi is a serial entrepreneur, has started and exited many startups in the past, and he's the current co-founder and chief commercial officer of FramePop. Avi, how are you?
Doing good, Reef. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. It's great to meet you. Can you share a little bit about yourself, some of the companies you started in the past, and maybe some of your experiences as an entrepreneur?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. And good to meet you. I appreciate the invite to be on the show. So I'm really at my core a music person. I went to school for music. I play multiple instruments. I've had runs as a hired gun guitar player in a bunch of different bands. I've even played a little bit of keys, a little bit of drums. Toured Europe. Had my run, but when I was living in LA, sort of wound up in the tech space at the intersection of advertising and music and technology. So, sort of trial by fire, helped a startup figure out how to monetize a bunch of traffic they had generated. Interesting company. It's now Spin Media. At the time, it was called BuzzNet. They were funded by Universal Music Group and Red Point Ventures, which is a Silicon Valley VC firm, and learned a ton and learned that I actually really enjoyed sort of the business initiatives within advertising technology and that I wasn't just a music person. It just sort of came naturally to me. I learned that the yield optimization skill set, meaning maximizing ad revenue generated by traffic to a particular web property or app, was a very sought after skill set. This is back in the day when like LinkedIn was brand new and Twitter was brand new and MySpace was still king and it was pre-Facebook's popularity. And I remember posting on LinkedIn. I created a LinkedIn profile one day when LinkedIn was new, and I posted my skill set, and then all of a sudden I got a bunch of inbound interest with job opportunities. One thing led to another, ended up getting some great offers, hopped around, spent a couple years at one company, a couple years at another company, moved up pretty quick, and recognized really early on a problem that needed to be solved in the industry. What was happening was a lot of people were moving video assets from television advertising online. People's bandwidth was finally starting to get fast enough to actually support this. This is the evolution in the US from DSL to cable internet. And so, as the biggest brands in the world were trying to figure out how to leverage the attention that was migrating online to basically bring their television advertising, the sight, sound, and motion of video, to the web, it was clear to me that nobody was actively measuring these ads in a way that made logical sense relative to the initiatives. Meaning, these were like brand advertising campaigns, and the internet at the time was all about punch the monkey banner ads and click based optimization as opposed to brand awareness and trying to sway large, purchase intent behavior like something like the automotive industry, for example. No one's going to just click a banner and then buy a car with a credit card,
Right.
right? It's a bigger purchase. So brand advertising on the internet. So I started a company in 2011 called Brand Ads, and we were a software platform designed for brand advertisers and their agency partners to measure advertising, specifically video. The effectiveness of the video, detecting fraudulent environments, which was a big issue for video back then. And really this was about the future of TV. So we had audience metrics like reach, frequency, gross rating points, demographics, that kind of thing. I was very fortunate that my fundraising initiatives for that particular company, I was the founder and CEO of the company. I was out raising venture capital, and one of the VC firms said, we have a portfolio company that's actually looking to buy a company like yours. And that, kind of evolved, and we sold the company. So very, very pleased to say that I have a little bit of an exit under my belt. I ran digital for that company. That company's called Extreme Reach. At the time, it was about 800 people, dominant market share in the TV advertising space for creative asset distribution, payroll management for actual TV production for TV ads. And I ran digital for them for about a year and a half. That was all when I was based in the Bay Area, and before that, LA, when I was doing BuzzNet. Then I moved up to Portland, where I live now. And from there, started a number of businesses. I've had e-com businesses. I'm getting ready to launch a new record label, a few different fun things. And a good friend of mine that I actually worked at BuzzNet with, Steve Kaplan, his career took him in the direction of analytics, data generally in the music industry specifically. So he was running digital product for Warner Music Group for about 7 years. And he tapped me about a little over a year ago, saying, hey man, the music industry really needs video assets, and it's never been possible without, pre-AI. for video assets to sort of the production of them to keep up with demand. You got social media needs, you got the Spotify Canvas, you've got
Right.
Apple Motion Art, and of course you've got the YouTube monetization opportunity with full form, full length videos. He's like, I could use your help. I know you've built companies before. I'm a product guy. I've got a good idea for a product, but can you jump on board? So we co-founded FramePop AI. It's been about a year now, and we've got an alpha version of a software platform. Basically, if you're a catalog owner or a record label, you can log into the platform. You can literally just type in text, like a basic creative brief, like you would provide to a creative agency or any kind of production studio, and say, hey, I need this video for this for this song. Normally it would cost you, tens of thousands of dollars and hours or weeks and weeks. And for a fraction of that, you can just type in that same creative brief and hit a
Hmm.
button, and we spit out the video asset for you literally within minutes.
That's
Thanks to,
awesome.
thanks to generative AI.
Yeah. So you've got some extensive experience and you've kind of come back to music, which is great. I've got some questions about frame pop though, now that you're speaking about it a little bit more. Can you put a photo of someone's face if they want a specific kind of character or if it's themselves? How does that work?
Yeah, so we are supporting image upload and animation of existing images. We're generating a video concept based on an image. We're not in the deep fake business, so it's a fine
Mm-hmm.
line. You know what I mean? Like
Totally. Yeah.
if you're a recording artist and you want it to be like a close up of you singing, that's a different company. That's not FramePop AI. That's a deep fake.
Sure.
But if you, to your point, want to build a sort of character based story,
Yes.
certainly you can upload an image and we can figure that out with the platform. There's also the opportunity, to generate those images with AI and then create the animation from there. So today we really support just a handful of primary products. So as I mentioned, there's the Spotify Canvas.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is an 8-second looped video. You've probably seen it on Spotify. Not every track has it, but Spotify has published data that says songs that have canvases have more engagement, more saves, more playlist ads. There's Apple Motion Art, which we also
Hmm.
support, which is very similar. It's generally more like the album cover, just moving. And so that's an image upload to your example that we then cause animation with. Then there's social media posts, of course. So anything from, a quick reel to a longer form piece of content. And then there's full blown music videos. Right now, our sweet spot is the visualizer. So it's a little more abstract. You can
Hmm.
always add lyrics on top for a lyric video. And eventually, we're going to get better at the story based full music video where it's like you want to actually tell a story that sort of matches the lyrics a little bit. But that's a bit more advanced
Hmm.
than just sort of a more abstract visualizer or something nice in the background while you see the lyrics.
Yeah. That's great. It's super interesting. And could you tell me a little bit? I'm sure wearing a lot of hats in the company. Your co-founder, is he the technical guy?
I do love working directly with engineers
Mm,
and UX designers, that kind of thing. I wouldn't
yeah.
call myself super technical, but I am technical enough to hurt myself. Like it's like having a sharp enough knife where you can cut yourself, but you're not really very good at like fighting with it.
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
that's about as technical as I get.
Right. So what would a typical day in the life look like for you with Frame Pop? I'm sure you've got other things happening, but with Frame Pop, is it a lot of outreach, trying to reach out to record labels, or are you reaching out to individual artists? Kind of what's your path there?
Yeah, we're really focused on sort of a B2B at scale enterprise opportunity, not chasing independent individual artists. There are plenty of companies that are aggregating those artists already, like distribution platforms. So
Hmm.
we've sort of got, I would just say, two ways of approaching things. One is we're going after catalog owners, which is a newer business model where you just go out and aggregate. Either you buy outright these catalogs, so you buy the IP of the sound recordings and the publishing, and then you monetize those super aggressively. Sort of aggregation type business model is just a classic record label.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, these are big parent companies that have multiple labels under one umbrella. So, the big difference between a catalog aggregator and an actual sort of record label aggregator is a record label signing artists, they're nurturing that relationship, they're A&R, they're scouting, looking for the next big act. Maybe somebody
Hmm.
that's popping on TikTok or something. Whereas the pure catalog guys are buying, they're basically raising private equity money to buy known catalogs from like classic household name artists.
Okay.
Both of these are interesting parties for us from this one particular business model, which is their team's going to log into our UI. They're going to actually type in some text or paste in some text from a creative brief, generate the assets, and pump them out and monetize them.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's in bulk, sometimes it's one at a time. Sometimes they want us to do it for them as a managed service, and we'll pump out, bulk videos for them based on their requirements.
I see.
So that's one type of business model that we are excited about, and that's very much log into the UI, click on stuff, or use us as a managed service, and we'll do it for you.
Hmm.
The other is going to be more of an API driven business engagement where we expose APIs to existing platforms. Those platforms tend to be aggregators of lots and lots of record labels and, in some cases, independent artists that don't have a label. So rather than go after an individual independent artist that maybe only releases 8 or 10 songs a year, we're interested in the platforms those artists use to distribute those. And so we would expose our APIs to the distribution platform partner. You can sort of think of them as a reseller or an
Hmm.
affiliate partner of ours, and they surface our technology within their existing platform.
I see.
And then we share in that revenue. And that enables a bunch of little guys that would normally never have access to our platform to gain access to some of the features through our APIs in a platform they already work with to distribute their music.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm curious about the actual video generation itself. Since you started Frame Pop, how much improvement have you seen in the actual quality of the content that's being created?
It's an awesome question, and it's an insane clip at which this industry is moving. I mean, not long ago, CP was the standard, even though the
Hmm.
world lives in 4K, because the models, struggle to make super high quality assets fast. And so, whether it's the actual resolution or whether it's the ability to follow the prompts accurately and not, hallucinate super heavily, we're seeing major improvements very, very quickly. We're seeing TP, we're seeing 4K support. Obviously, it takes longer to process that kind of video. It's more expensive to process that kind of video. We're seeing more strict adherence to the prompts, and we're generating knowledge base articles as well. So like if you become a FramePop customer, you've got a login, you can go to our knowledge base and we've got a bunch of articles that basically teach you how to get the best results.
Right, that was going to be my
You
next
just,
question.
yeah, if you just wing it, it might turn out okay.
Yeah.
But most of the time you want to follow, you want a theme, you
Hmm.
want, a style, you want to really hit some key points in the way you're popping the language in so
Yeah.
that the model, because we've got an LLM layer before we hit the generative AI for the video, where we're interpreting your text in a proprietary way with our own tech, our own IP. We're interpreting it into micro prompts so that you can
Hmm.
generate a ton of, individual clips that we then sew together in an automated way in the cloud so that it spits out a single video that feels cohesive, but in reality is a bunch of little clips that we generated with a bunch of little prompts that we created based on just a little text from you.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, that was going to be my next question. I presume a lot of these artists or the people using your platform, when they go in, they probably have a very specific idea of what they want. So my question was going to be how can you or how do you help them kind of get them where they want? So that helps a lot with having those articles there.
That's part of it. Another part of it is just talking to us. Like it's so
Hmm.
important to just say like, can we get on a call and talk this through?
Yeah.
Because our customers are bigger customers. There's only 3 major record labels in the world right now, right? So we're talking to all of them, all of their divisions, different markets around the world are run, each office is run discreetly from one
Hmm.
another. But at the end of the day, like, talk to us if you need guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good that you guys are flexible and able to have those conversations with them. You're probably a flexible team and able to do that. My next question quickly is about, have you guys developed all of this manually by yourselves, or are you using open source models to integrate in as well?
It's nothing we're using is open source. Everything costs money, but
Mm.
yes, we have a lot of our own proprietary technology. The whole platform itself is our own, and
Okay.
even though we tap into external models and their APIs to do certain, perform certain tasks, at the end of the day, this sort of aggregation of models and workflow solution that's specifically tailored to the music industry seems to be pretty unique IP. Ultimately, the music industry, as we all know, can sometimes move a little slowly when it comes to new tech. Our goal is to, even though we could make videos for any industry, the reason we're so focused on the music industry is not only is our co-founder and CEO intimately familiar from his time at Warner Music, but it's super clear that this industry, because they move slowly, they're sort of stuck in this place where there's a small handful of people trying to figure out AI models for video, but most models only generate like a 5, 10, 15-second clip. It's
Hmm.
not going to solve your problems. Most people are not particularly good at prompting, certainly not multiple prompts for multiple clips to generate a story. So we're really focused on solving a specific problem for a specific industry because, the niche nature of a business model is such that if you're a generalist and you don't know who your customer is, you don't really know who you're selling to, nor do you
Yep.
know what features you're developing, who you're developing features for. And this way we can be super focused. We could hypothetically, horizontally branch into other verticals outside of the music industry. But for now, we're just trying to stay really laser focused.
Right. Can you kind of tell me about any major challenges you've had? I'm sure you've had lots, but
Yeah.
what were the major challenges that you've seen and continue to see, and how have you gotten over them?
I would say the biggest challenges are either human in the sense of like getting people comfortable with being inside of a user interface all day that actually some people might interpret it as threatening their job, right? So like people that
Hmm.
are responsible for generating video in a traditional way and now they could just pump out more video faster and cheaper. Some folks are either really warm to the idea and excited because they just embrace AI and the future. And some people are like, oh, is this gonna, I don't see the vision of being more efficient and productive. What I see is something that could take my job.
Yes.
But so I think that's the biggest challenge is sort of turning that second archetype into the first. And I think it's happening because what we're seeing is people are like, well, they pepper you with questions to try to like invalidate the model as being good enough. The business model or the product overall vision as being
Hmm.
good enough to replace humans. And we're like, look, our goal is not to replace anyone.
Yep.
Our goal is to augment your ability. 99% of tracks that exist on YouTube Music or Spotify or Apple Music don't have video assets. If you
Hmm.
go to listen to music on YouTube, you see what's called an art track. That's just a static image of the album cover, and then the track plays. And that's YouTube Music. It's not YouTube. So there's no YouTube video algorithm recommending in the next video, none of that, right? You don't get any of that stuff in the right column in the traditional YouTube experience on the web. There's, YouTube proper and YouTube Music are totally separate platforms. So that means, that's great that art tracks make money as YouTube Music is treated as a traditional DSP, meaning digital streaming platform, where it's equal to something like a Spotify or an Apple Music. But YouTube proper means there could be a whole second revenue stream for every single track. So if you're sitting on a catalog and you own, let's say, 100,000 tracks, right? And only 1,000 of those have music videos, and 99,000 of those don't. This is just an opportunity to point your team at a problem that's just going to generate a net new revenue stream for you.
Super interesting. I like your passion. I can feel it through your voice of the vision. I can tell you feel the vision. Now I'm starting to think about, the possibilities with something like this. What is your vision, say, in the next 5 years? Where do you see Frame Pop?
It's a great question. I mean, a 5-year plan, things change so fast, it's tough to say. I would say, just, to be really, really honest, as an artist myself, right? As somebody who has a recording studio, has made lots of records with people over the years, both as a producer and as an artist who's toured, blah, blah, blah. I'll just say this. I think there's a culture war brewing. And I think the culture war is going to be a sort of who embraces AI and who is sort of anti-AI. And I don't, and I, so I think that a lot of folks that are sort of doing the AI first, trying to fire people or do hiring freezes like at Shopify or wherever you're hearing these announcements, I think that's going to blow up in their faces because I think AI assisted is really the bridge to more autonomy and more agentic, sophisticated AI. I think the idea of sprinting from LLMs that are pretty good, fairly nascent still, to agentic AI, I just think people are a bit too aggressive about that time jump. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of people that are anti-AI pointing at a bunch of people that are AI first instead of AI assisted, saying, ha ha, told you so, right? I think, for example, let's just talk tech, pure tech. LLM generated code. if you're doing vibe coding, you're getting autocomplete guesswork. If you actually go through the code that most LLMs generate, whether it's Claude or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT, it doesn't matter who it is. If you're generating code with AI and you're not actually an engineer, and you think you're going to be able to push this code into production and launch a product and monetize it in 2026 or the end of 2025, you are going to have a rude awakening where that code, just like anything else an LLM gives you, has errors, has typos, has made incorrect assumptions about what autocomplete looks like. Strung together autocomplete spaghetti is not sophisticated architected code. And so you're going to have a bunch of people that are on one side of the culture war going, pointing fingers at everybody that leaned in too hard too fast, because a bunch of shit's going to break. And when shit breaks, what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to call in real people or more sophisticated agentic AI to come in and be like, there's just no closing brackets in this whole fucking block of code, or like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's going to have to get fixed by someone. It's, the role of a frame pop AI in the overarching arc of what that's going to look like is going to be, first, I think the most popular use of us, at least at scale by the larger companies, like publicly traded companies that own multiple labels, is going to be managed service, meaning they're going to lean on us as sort of an agency model. Like, hey, we currently pay agencies to generate this many videos for us. It takes this many months. It costs this much money. And we'll just say, great, we can take that business and we can charge you less and do it faster. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. I think that people that are a bit more open-minded are going to, and sort of like early adopters will log in and play with it. And I think over the next year or two, we'll evolve from a managed service thing with a few early adopters to more people logging in. Fast forward maybe 18, 24 months, our API integrations will become much more popular. And then 5 years from now, we're probably looking at a broader, more verticalized business model that maybe starts to break out of the music industry and gets into just visual storytelling generally for other industries. But there are companies already trying to tackle storytelling generally with video. And I think if you play with them, they're not very good. You generate a character, you tell that character to move through a storyline. In scene 3, the character's color of hair has changed. Or, they've gone from being an adult to being a child. It's like,
Yeah.
we're just not there yet, as an
Right.
industry.
Right. Awesome. Well, Avi, thank you for your insights. I've got one last question for you before
Yeah.
we jump. How can all the listeners and viewers find you, your businesses, or FramePop?
Yeah, so the website's just framepop.ai. I've got some other businesses brewing. I've got a new record label that's coming soon called Reverence Records. ReverenceRecords.com. By the time this is published, will probably be up and running. Pretty exciting. If you dig music, some pretty big names that some people have heard of might be joining our label. And I'm just Avi Brown. You can just Google me. My LinkedIn probably pops right up.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Avi. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Reef.